So part B of the question was a liquid limit test question. So in a liquid limit test using cone penetration, the readings given in table 1.1 were recorded in a plastic limit test. On the same soil, the plastic limit PL was found to be 30%. Complete the table and determine the liquid limit, determine the plastic limit index, and suggest a classification using the plasticity chart provided. So the first thing to note is that you're given PL equal to 30%. Okay, your plastic limit equal to 30%. Then you're given this table. You need to find out these two water contents to get your graph. So this is, some people were asking in the exam about that you weren't given the mass of the container. You only needed to give the mass of the container to work out these values, but these were already given. So you're given the mass, the wet mass. So you're given the wet mass of the soil, and you're given the mass of the soil itself, the dry mass. So these are the two values you need and the two values you're given in the exam. So you don't actually need the mass of the container. So to get this value, you've got your water content. Let's say we'll call this 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 1. So the water content of 1 is your 25.9 minus 19.4 over 19.4. Okay, so this gives you the mass of water. Okay, and this is your mass of solids, i.e. your dry mass. Okay, so just remember that there's some instances on the internet where it's showing the wet mass underneath. Don't trust everything you see when you do Google searches. Make sure they're properly referenced material, because anyone can put things up on the internet. So make sure you look at either books or journals or publications or something that can be referenced to get your values. Okay, so this gives you an overall value of 33.5%. And likewise for the water content for sample 3, you have 21.5 minus 14.6 all over 14.6, giving you 47.3%. So now that we have our table complete, we now have to determine our liquid limit. Now keep in mind that the liquid limit is not the average of all these values. You get the liquid limit from graphing the water content against the penetration. Okay, a number of people took it as the average of these values. It is not. Okay, it is taken from the graph. So once you have all your water contents and the penetrations that you need to get 4 points in the graph, you mark your 4 points on the graph. Now make sure you pick an appropriate scale. You want a graph that shows the line taking up most of the graph, so choose your scale accordingly. Don't choose a scale of, let's say, 0 to 100% and end up with your 4 dots here, and then you're trying to read your graph. You're trying to find the value in this zone over a very tight area. So make sure you choose a range, especially on your x-axis, but also on your y-axis, that only shows the zone, the 4 points you're looking at. You don't need it to go any lower, you don't need to go any higher on both sides of the scale. You do need to make sure that the 20 millimeter is visible at whatever point on the graph that is, because that's the point where you take your liquid limit. So you've marked in your 4 points, you've chosen a good scale that shows the 4 points as best you can, and next you pick a straight line that best approximates the 4 points. Okay, from that you take the 20 millimeter penetration mark to the line and you read the percentage of that. Okay, so your liquid limit is 45%. This is why it's very important to ensure you have a graph that your line takes up most of the graph. Whereas if it's only in a small section of it, it's going to be very hard to see the difference between 40, 45, 50. You need to ensure it takes over the whole graph. There's no reason to zero these axes. Okay. So now that we have our liquid limit, we have our plastic limit from before, which was given in the question, was your 30%. Okay. And then your plasticity index, which is the next part of the question, is your liquid limit minus your plastic limit. So it's 45 minus 30, which is equal to 15%. So that's your plasticity index. And then the last part of the question asked you to suggest a classification using the plasticity chart provided. Okay, so don't forget this part. There's marks get going and you're throwing them away by not answering this part. Now the plasticity chart you were given in the exam gives you what the x and y axis is. So on the x-axis we have liquid limit, and on the y-axis you have plasticity index. So you have your plasticity index of 15%. So get a point 15% approximately, and then your liquid limit was your 45%. And the point where these meet is is your classification type. So in this instance, it is intermediate plasticity, and the M means it's a silt. And again, in the exam, you're told that M is silt and C is for clay. So don't forget to state these because it is part of it. So the classification. So it's silt with intermediate plasticity. Okay, so that's the full question. If you have any queries on that, you can let me know.